Has Cambridge Audio made a better amp than the EXA100? Yeah, obviously they have. The Edge series from years back, if you look into those are some fantastic designs. Have they ever made an amp more important than the EXA100 that we're looking at today? No, I really think this is it. Nothing like starting a video proclaiming it's the most important product in their entire lineup, and then promptly naming off some of the faults. Let's cover a few areas, dig into a couple that need further examination. For one, this one is more expensive. Well, expensive is kind of relative, right? But this one comes in at around $2,200, which is a significant jump over the EXA100 Mark II that also released just this last year. I have both here, and I can straight away tell you that the EXA series is better. But I would certainly expect it to be coming in at $1,000 more. It's more feature-rich, it has a better amplifier, and it just plainly looks better too. The EXA100 Mark II is a good amp nonetheless when you run it up against amps in the same price point. For example, the Audiolab 6000A, they are the same price, and that 81 can compete and excel in many cases over it, but that's a story for another day. Caveat number 2, no phono stage. Would I like it? Yeah, honestly, I would like to see it on a product at this price. Would I use it? Also being honest, likely not. I would more than likely gravitate to one of my external options that just tend to perform a little bit better than anything bundled in, at least at this price point. I wonder if this was excluded because the Cambridge Audio turntables also have an integrated preamp and they just want to keep you within that family. It's hard to say, so let's just end this one with, should it have it? Yes, I think so. Does it have it? No. Irk number 3, no tone controls. I'm just laying it out there today. It's another one where I feel like, yes, it probably should have it, but would I use it? Almost certainly not. I've had mini amps in with tone controls and it's never something I feel like I need to use. It feels sort of like a poor imitation of an equalizer to myself. So no tone controls, but I really don't care. Also, this is sort of a theme with Cambridge products. Sometimes it feels like they want to keep things really simple and just put the music on the pedestal rather than unnecessary extras. Like it or not, that's just kind of who they are. The streamers, the CXN and the EXN, utilizing the Stream Magic platform, they operate the same way. Simple, but it works fantastically. Oh wait, I was a little too positive. Let me get my cons face back on. All right, let's go. The DAC could be called a little bit old in the tooth. It's an ES9018, and it's certainly been around the block a time or two. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, the DAC chip doesn't necessarily make or break the DAC implementation. There's so much more to it when it comes to a complete design. A simple example would be some of the really cheap DACs available today. The ES offer some of the latest and greatest chips, but some, but not all, do still end up falling short, even with the so-called flagship chips. You can pick out a recipe for the perfect chocolate cake, plan everything, mix up the sugar and the flour, and well, it's gonna taste like trash compared to the one that your wife made when she actually followed the instructions. Basically, just a dumb way of saying the ingredients matter and how you use them. A little side note, if you do pair this up with the EXN100 streamer, as shown here, you're likely going to be utilizing the DAC in there, as it is a marked improvement over what you get in the integrated amp. Will it be like magically cleaning a dirty window, the music can just shine right through? No, it's not like that at all, but the DAC in the streamer does appear to have received a little bit more attention in the EXN streamer series. Okay, enough Debbie Downer. Let's get into why this is actually the most important amp in their lineup and why I would personally spend the extra to get this over the EXA100 Mark II. And I think in many cases, the Audiolab 9000A that comes in $900 more. If I can get your attention for just a moment, please consider sending a like, comment, subscription my way. Really looking to grow the channel in 2025 and bring in all kinds of new products. And with your support, we can make that happen. Okay, for one, scream it from the rooftops. This one has HDMI. There's no denying this is a connection that's really important to a lot of people. Seems like you can't release a product today without it, or these types of messages start popping up. More importantly than just having HDMI, this one actually works every single time I try it. I've had a number of products come in the last year here that boast that HDMI connection, and it either doesn't work in general, or it's constantly losing connection, doesn't have full functionality, just in general, not a user-friendly experience that I would bring into my living room. If my wife and kids can't just turn on the TV and have everything else just work, it's really a failure at this point in 2025. So while this might seem like a small point, it's a usability item that I really want to highlight. It works, and it works every single time. I personally don't think HDMI is a must-have, but you can't deny that it does open up a lot of use cases. A lot of people don't have a dedicated listening room. I would say the majority of us use a hybrid space with their TV. If you can simply run your TV audio over the HDMI, and then with a couple of clicks, listen to Tidal, Amazon, whatever your streaming source is, that's a win in my book for end users. I do realize you can do this over optical as well, but controlling everything with a single remote is key for a lot of people, and I don't blame them. The room I'm in here is a dedicated listening space for filming, testing, and just enjoyment. But as you can see, I do have a TV in here as well. It's an LG C4 OLED, and it pairs up fantastically. If you have a properly dialed in 2-channel system, it's not too often you're gonna miss a complete surround sound. I do prefer a full surround sound for movies, but for a lot of people, this is gonna be all they need without having speakers all over the room. You know, sometimes that just isn't in the cards. The amp section in this one is a really fantastic design. It's inspired by their flagship M monoblock, which is an absolute unit and enjoyed by basically everyone who has their hands on it. The AB design in the EXA100 puts out 100 watts per channel into 8 ohms and 155 watts at 4. This amp didn't falter in any of my listening tests and really falls into the sweet spot for speakers in my opinion. This amount of power is going to be able to push nearly all speakers outside of the really inefficient to more than ear-safe levels of volume. Mind you, always consider the room size and your distance from the speakers. If you're a football field away or living in a warehouse for some reason, your needs will vary, but spaces up to medium to semi-large levels will enjoy, I would say, everything they're looking for is, as far as what's going to come from the speakers on these in volume. Trickle-down technology is a very real thing, and if we can get a taste of the Edge series in a smaller, budget-friendly design, I'm all for this. Giving a quick look at the amp itself, it's similar in shape to the CXA series, but the camera doesn't really do it justice as far as the looks. It's a really good looking amp. A glance from the top gives you a look at that heavy duty polished heatsink surrounding the toroidal transformer. Other small but nice touches include this milled aluminum front panel as well as this knurled knob. The bottom has a nice touch. This angled bottom here sort of makes the amp look like it's floating. It makes it look a bit more interesting than just a simple box. For testing, I paired this with the Zoo Audio DW6 Superfly Edition, the CSS Audio 1TDX with the updated crossover, and the Polk LSIM 703, just kind of a classic that I always enjoy. The streamer was the Cambridge EXN100, and for vinyl, I used the Manny 2 going into the EXA, as this does not have a phono pre. Getting into the power first, I didn't find I needed any more power across any of my speakers here, and none of these are particularly sensitive. I put all these into the category of more watts, the better. Mind you, we have a lot of different characteristics of sound coming across these 3 speakers, but in general, across the board, they all sounded, very spacious, dynamic, and wide. I still feel like there's a Cambridge house sound that possibly shines through here. This amp gave off the impression of a little more high-frequency detail, more what I would call the high-end sound than what the CXA81 Mark II had. But the rest followed suit with their typical warmer-leaning mids and lows that can make music so agreeable. The imaging was fantastic. The center imaging was spot on, and it felt like there was a perceived space between the speakers as well. It really just gave me a good listen across all genres. This is something I've noticed with Cambridge gear. It's just not as picky about the type of music as some other gear, and the only thing I can think of for a way to explain this is it's really a company about the music, not necessarily equipment per se. They really seem to look for people passionate about music. From what I gather, they even have a stage where they bring in live music at their headquarters. I can't imagine many other brands are doing that today. Another quick example is that when they're hired with the company, they have to declare their music moment, and it shows up in places like their email signature or business cards. It's not a company that makes vacuums and occasionally makes some speaker products. It's a company that really appears to be dedicated to their trade. Notables on pairings, I think this one does a really good job with speakers that can use a little extra shine on the top, which just so happens, the LSIM and CSS speakers I tested both benefit from this. Both of these speakers are lush and some of my favorite listens, but pairing them with an amp like this can keep the characteristics that I think most of us enjoy while giving us a bit more detail. Another great feature on this one, missing on the 81, is the power amp mode. You can flick the switch here and essentially change this over to a dedicated power amp. That's exactly what I did when I used it with the EXN100 streamer. Should they build a dedicated amp within this series? Maybe. It could be a really popular product, but in its current config, this pairs fantastically with, any preamp streamer combo like the EXN that we have today. When you pair this with the EXN100, you have it switched over onto the dedicated amp mode, and then you just select the preamp mode within the EXN setup menu. All the volume controls are going to be disabled on the EXA amp, and that's going to be turned over to the EXN operating as your preamp, as well as one of my favorite streamers to date. Don't worry about losing that HDMI connection, when you switch over power amp mode. If you have this paired with the EXN streamer, it's equipped with the same option, and yes, it works just as well. A few people have commented that the EXA and EXN cross over too many of the same components, and that an all-digital EXN streamer and an all-analog EXA amplifier would have been better. But you should really consider looking at this from another point, I feel like. We're pushing these manufacturers in two directions all the time. So many want less features with more separation between the individual components, and so many, on the other hand, want it all, everything, all in one single box, all the connections. If they separated the EXA and EXN like this, we would really force the customer down the path, at around $4,000 for both of these units. Mind you, it would be a great path and would perform really well, but having some but not all the features crossed over still allows someone to get into like an EXA100 at around $2,200. Streaming is going to be out at that point, but Cambridge also makes a streamer for around $400 that utilizes their DAC Magic software, or obviously whatever other streaming platform that you're currently into. It all just kind of depends what you want, and it's fine to want different things here. If you don't require HDMI, their EXN100 V2 is a great streamer as well, performs very similar to the new EXA streamer, and can save you a bit of cash. The new EXN streamer will get you a higher resolution screen, and it comes in about 25% larger. It has better build quality and that pesky HDMI that a lot of us are looking for. Those are the obvious improvements. Internally, they were quoted as saying there were significant changes made to the post-DAC analog stage, reportedly including some hand-picked signal components and op-amps to reach a level of clarity and separation that they were looking to achieve here. If you're looking for a preamp streamer, it's certainly one to check out if this is in the price range you're looking. I could easily see myself daily driving this one as it's clean, it's pretty simple, and it's reliable. I should also mention if you pair the EXA100 and the EXN100, they do operate with the same remote. It's a dad-style remote, no doubt there, a button for everything except maybe a coffee refill. As for the perfect spot in their lineup for their A/B amp selections, they have the budget realm really well covered with options falling around $300, $400, $600. Then the newest CXA model, the 81 Mark II, coming in around $1,200. That $1,200 hits a really important but competitive price point, and I kind of like where that one falls as far as performance goes. Before the new EXA100, we would have to price jump all the way from $1,200 for the 81 Mark II to $6,000 for the Edge A integrated amp. That doesn't really leave much of an upgrade path if you want to stay in their family of products. The EXA series, I just feel like it fits here. They have to match up with a lot of others at this price point. For example, one that I have in-house, the Audiolab 9000A. They have similar power outputs, specs, and features. The Audiolab has the phono input, but lacks the HDMI the Cambridge has. The 9000A doesn't have a dedicated sub-out. You need to use pre-out. The Cambridge has both. Both can function as power amps. The EXA81 can power 2 sets of speakers. The 9000A has a screen where the EXA has the analog buttons, but it should be noted that the EXA also comes in around $800 cheaper. I think they can make this price point work. It's a really good performing amp, and I feel like it's worth a look in 2025. All this being said, they do have their separate lineup of Class D Evo amps that are more so their all-in-one units with the Stream Magic platform built in, but for today's review, I just want to touch on the Class AB offerings. I would really like to know what your must-haves on integrated amps or even preamp streamers are these days. Should manufacturers throw everything under the sun on these, or would you prefer a more dedicated and intentional approach? I would guess some of these companies feel a bit pressured in both directions. It's sort of a no-win situation at times, with users coming at them for giving them connections they don't use and potentially raising the price points, versus the other half complaining about the one connection they missed that makes it or breaks it. Well, at least in their mind. The good news is, over the last couple years, things have really been trending in the right direction, and I think we should have a lot of good products coming down the pipe this year. If you guys, gals get a chance, please send a like, comment, or subscription my way. I'm trying to get in some really interesting pieces for review, and your engagement in the community really helps me out. Take care. Later.